Hello and good day, everyone. Welcome to Learn How to See Better. This is the only podcast out there that will improve your vision the longer you listen. This is your host, Drew Davis, and I want to welcome you to today's episode. Today is Monday, February 1st, 2021. It's a beautiful, glorious morning here in Phoenix, Arizona. There's sunshine outside, the skies are blue and beautiful, and I'm full of energy here. So I wanted to share a couple of things that I might have to help a few parents out there today. What I called today's episode was Patient Parenting Principles. You know, sometimes when you think about it, it's not that there's things you don't know as it pertains to parenting, but you may find that there's things you know, but you've forgotten they were so. And so I'm really doing this for my own benefit, as well as any of the other parents out there that are looking to be more effective, more patient, continue to build that connection with their children. And one of the things I thought I would do is just cover a couple of things that are really simple, really easy, and they're more just refreshers, so to speak, because what I found is that, like adults, children sometimes need reminders, right? And that's kind of where we start with this. If you're a parent, you've probably had the joy or the luxury of having to repeat yourself, maybe with asking your kid to do something, or to pick up after themselves, or to do their chores, or to finish eating their food or put their plate away. But the simple thing about it is that children need to be reminded more than they need to be instructed. And it's such a simple thing, but we can sometimes lose that in translation, right? You sometimes even hear the phrase that somebody needs to hear something 5, 6, or 7 times before it really clicks. And so if you've asked your kid to clean up their room 4 times, guess what? You still got a few more to go. But sometimes it's really about those friendly reminders and how we go about that. Because let's say if you've got a routine in your household, kids get home from school as an example, and we say, okay, what do we do when we get home from school? The process might be that we take our shoes off before we come in, we go use the restroom, wash our hands, change clothes from the clothes we've been playing outside in, working up a sweat all day, getting dirty. And so it's just those 4 things, right? So it's not as though each day they need to be taught how to wash their hands, how to take their shoes off, how to do these basic things. They know that. But it's a lot better response to say, hey guys, remember what our afternoon routine is when we get home from school, okay? And it's typically met, when it's phrased as a question, with a yes, or I know, okay, yep, we got it. Versus sometimes when you're trying to take the instruction approach, do this thing now, you need to this, you need to that, go here, do that, go there. That can sometimes be met with the mood of the child. Maybe it's a complaint or whining, or more of the retaliatory, I know, mom, back off kind of type of attitude. And sometimes that response is based on how the request is phrased, or the command. And so it goes back to the fact that children need to be reminded more than they need to be instructed. So if you've ever found yourself asking your child to do the same thing over and over and over and over again, if you know it's something that they know how to do, instead of saying you know better and to go and re-educate them on a task, it could be as simple as a friendly reminder. Some of the dads out there have had to be reminded that they need to, hang the towel up a certain way, to take the trash out on a certain day, to put the toilet seat up or down. It's not that the guy doesn't know how to do these things. It's just that we need to be reminded sometimes if we are not all that efficient in that particular task. And one funny thing about that is it actually reminds me of a story that a good friend of mine told me. He was saying that, when you look at parenting, so many parents are misguided about how to kind of bring their children up in the world. Not raise, but, encourage them and educate them and love them. Because some others say that you don't raise people, you raise cattle. So we can kind of watch our lingo as we educate our children and nurture them in their phase of growth. But the thing he said that was so startling, and I'd never looked at it like this before. He said, the little ones, they're not even really children. They're adults going through a childlike experience. And I thought, okay, that's All right, that's out there. It seemed a little bit far-fetched. But here's where it came into context a little bit better for me. He said, think about this. How many times have you seen an adult discipline a child? Maybe it's you, maybe it's someone you know, maybe it's your parents or how you receive discipline. How often is it that the parent, which is a larger human being, is, barking or shouting or issuing commands and orders to this little person, right? And think about that from just stepping back and looking at a silent video, perhaps. And you've got this big person, raining down commands, orders to this little person. And if you could just in that moment imagine that child was just a smaller adult. And you think, wow, how's another adult supposed to respond when another adult is just, standing over them, bearing down on them, issuing commands, orders, do this, do that. It becomes a little bit daunting to think that it's almost like you're, in some cases, if this is you, training your child to have to submit to sometimes disrespectful or very aggressive orders. And once you look at it from that frame of reference, you realize, my, oh my, how much different would it be if I could maybe just take a moment to have a little patience and just think about the desired outcome that's being sought. And then maybe lower the voice, maybe drop down to the height of the child and, face to face, eye to eye level, and give them perhaps the respect that you might give another adult in the workplace, in a social environment. Just think about that, good old fashioned golden rule. Treat others as you'd like to be treated. And I think when we take some of that and place it in our parenting, what we may find is that we can communicate a little bit better. We can speak with a little bit more patience. We can work on how we want to articulate how we'll get to that end result. And that's where you realize, okay, maybe it is just a reminder instead of just ordering the kid that already might be a little sensitive that day or might not be feeling well. And we recognize that, if you want something done from another adult, if you're a manager or a boss, how well is it received if you just rain down orders on your employees? I can imagine what that corporate culture would be like. Probably not the greatest, right? Probably not going to get the highest manager marks for those employees that get to evaluate their managers at the end of the year. And so imagine that for a moment. If your kids were to submit an annual evaluation of you as a parent, how you nurture them, how you keep their love tank full, how you discipline them, how you educate them, how you give them freedoms, all these things. And when you put that into perspective, and if you can have the honesty and vulnerability to actually kind of stare into that mirror, look into your own eyes and think through these things, right? What would my kids think about my own parenting, right? Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever taken a moment to think about how you were parented as a child? In what ways did it make it great? In what ways did it maybe leave you a little bit damaged or scarred for a period of time? Do you have scars that still exist from your childhood experience? And so there's so many opportunities for us to not only do a better job, not that there's anything wrong with necessarily the way that our parents raised us. We've all got to recognize that the world changes and the advice and the guidance may need to be adjusted because sometimes the world of yesterday is not the same as the world of today. So you maybe need a update here and there. But the idea is really you want to have the best opportunity to have a positive input on your child's life for their entire life. And your child will spend such a small percentage of their entire life, statistically, as a child. And then furthermore, as a child living in your household. And so when you really think about that window of influence that you have, it's actually kind of small. And we want to make the most of it because if we're trying to best equip our children to handle the world of today and tomorrow, then we need to be putting our best foot forward. There's going to be days where you don't necessarily feel like being that parent, right? And we have to keep the big picture in mind, those momentary moods that we might have based on emotion. We have to outwit that. We have to outsmart any of those poor choices that might take away from our experience or our power as a parent. So some of these patient parenting principles, again, reminders over instruction. Kids need to be reminded more than they need to be instructed. Think about the fact that these little people are going through a childlike experience. Most of their life, they're adults. They're going through a childlike experience right now. Keep those things in mind when you think about love and respect and communication and how you raise someone to behave as an adult, right? So some of these things are very important. Taking the time to think about the outcome that you want. Be patient with your parenting. Take the time to lower yourself to their level. Meet them where they're at, eye to eye. Connect with them. It's a reciprocation of the communication. And you're going to allow your kids to feel more love and respect that way. And you'll probably get a much more positive response next time there's, tasks that need to be taken care of or ways that the household's managed that, require their input and contribution. But these simple patient parenting tips, I think, could go to help somebody out there. And if these help you, I'm grateful for that. If they might be able to help someone else that you know that's a parent, please share this with them, right? My goal is not to call out any parent as inherently good or bad, but just a set of friendly reminders about things that we can do to be more patient, to be more positive, to be more productive, right? To be more powerful as a parent. You never know how far that might really take you and the progress that you make with their child as they go through the different stages of their life. Childhood, adolescence, into adulthood. You're still parenting even when your kid's grown. Don't forget that. But the level of influence you have is going to be associated with the success that you had when they were coming up as a child. Because you know what? Once they get to be an adult, they may not have to really listen to what you got to say anymore. And if you haven't developed that love and respect for your discipline and your teachings, it'd be unfortunate to see some of your best value that you continue to give your child as they rise into adulthood fall upon deaf ears because you weren't willing to take the time. You didn't have the patience, love, and understanding to make those communication connections when they were young. And now maybe they've rejected the inputs that you have to provide once they're older. Something to keep in mind as we continue our parenting journeys. But again, I hope that you find some value in this. It helps someone. This is just a page out of my stage of life where I have to remind myself that as my parenting journey continues and the family grows and different personalities of each different child, and each different child has different sets of needs, and how you can have an overarching strategy that might make sense. You can't just run the same plays out of the playbook with each kid and expect the same results and response. So it's ever more important to make sure that you understand the individuality of each of your children. You can still, kind of parent from the same book of goodness, but knowing that you might need a few customizations, and to take that time and to be patient as a parent so you can learn and better understand your child so that you can communicate and connect with them more effectively and really get the best of the best rewards out of being a parent. So for what it's worth, thank you again for listening. Hope you found that value, and I will be sure to catch you on a future episode of Learn How to See Better, the only podcast out there that will improve your vision the longer you listen.